What industry is a lot shadier than it seems? My dad knows a story from someone who works for a nationwide grocery chain. They have to deal with an Italian mafia to import balsamic vinegar. More businesses than you think have to deal with mafiosos and gangsters. I once helped the gang relations person with Habitat for Humanity get reassurance that their volunteers would be protected in an American inner city. They apparently always speak with the gangs beforehand for safety reasons. The maritime industry. Most of the big companies do things by the book and treat crews well because they're afraid of lawsuits and unions. But many smaller mom and pop companies break laws and violate safety regulations with reckless abandon because they are not as visible and can stay under the radar, so to speak. It's very common for a small company to ask a captain crew to do something illegal and dangerous in order to increase profit, and for the captain crew to comply out of fear of losing their jobs. And that's just the US maritime industry. Sailors from poorer nations who work on ships are often fed little more than rice and cheap ramen for months at a time and paid pennies for their back-breaking work. I love running tugs for a living, but the industry as a whole is rife with shady business. Rating services like Yelp refuse to advertise and your good reviews magically get rearranged. Hey, look, if you want to do that and be transparent, I get it. But most every business owner knows how scummy this is and most clients just have no idea. I have a business that isn't something that would usually be looked for on Yelp. They called and I just froze. Luckily I do long-term rentals and was sold out. Explained I wouldn't have an opening for months. They seemed to leave me alone. Yet they have my business on the front page of Google search, under the wrong category. Dietary supplements. It's gotten better, but there's still a lot of half-truths and whole lies. Not all that long ago it was seriously like the wild wild west. Eyeglasses. You have no idea the snow job they put most people through when it comes to buying them. It's far worse than trying to buy a new car from a dealership. Wholesale frames are about $5.20. Wholesale lens blanks are another $10. Any kind of dip coating, UV, tinting, etc. is negligible cost and effort to apply, literally pennies. To top it off, they don't even do a whole lot in-house, but send it to labs which are basically sweatshops that can take up to 2-3 weeks when labor time is literally under 5 minutes. Instead of training real opticians and technicians, they are just glorified sales staff now. Most of the time they don't even bother with proper measurement for PD, frame width, or arm fitting. Was an optician in the early 90s. I'm horrified at what the business has become. Cruise ships. I was told I was having a minimum of 1 day off every week and work normal hours, 8-10 each day, with a good pay and good prepaid tips. I ended up working 30 days in a row, over 400 hours, for $1,600 with tips included. This company I was working for was called Scenic Cruises. Ship was called Ms. Scenic Crystal, which was an Australian company working over a Swiss company going under a Maltese flag, sailing in Central Europe. That's how I understood it anyways. They deliberately did this so they could break international laws. I counted at least 5 that they broke. Biggest scam company I ever worked for. I resigned after my first month. The police boarded the ship every once in a while because they knew this, but they couldn't do crap because they had no jurisdiction over the ship. I was forced to work with a 39 Celsius fever. I really wanna frick this company up, but I literally have no idea how. And hiring an international lawyer or whatever is too expensive. They are also huge polluters and dump waste into the ocean. Trucking. The margins are razor thin and so everyone is trying to nickel and dime each other constantly. The drivers lie to their dispatchers. The dispatchers lie to the brokers lie to the clients. All of this for like $50, $100 sometimes. Recruitment industry. Some examples. Fake jobs to lure candidates for registration capers. Trainee negotiation tactics of telling a candidate there is a better candidate who wants less, so we recommend less for you to get the job, especially for contractors. Coveting off pitching and telling a candidate they have been sent to a line manager but in reality they haven't been submitted because 2 others from same recruiter have already been in interviews. If they fail you may get a chance. Lot of coded ways to put on a database info on your age, non-professional related appearance, and ethnicity. Ageism, sexism, racism is rampant in hiring. A lot more dodgy stuff behind the scenes. Source: was involved with the industry on a global level for over 15 years before I changed careers. This happens all the time. One airline friend of mine got hired, but there was a caveat that he must be completely quit from his existing airline before he would receive his job offer. He put in his notice. The new company strung him along and then basically lied and didn't give him the job. Avocado farms. Most of the farms in Central America are taken over by the cartel because of how much money is in selling avocados. Pet industry. Basement puppy mills and dogs that are so inbred they can hardly breathe. There are plenty of ethical breeders out there, and some unlicensed breeders are ethical even if in a legal gray zone, but the conditions of some of the so-called puppy mills can be really bad. Sometimes when breeds are mixed and the pup gets the recessive genes the breeders weren't looking for, they straight up euthanize it because they know it won't sell. Not to mention how many purebreds are actually not pure at all, and sold as is. Shady. CBD. Lot of predatory companies making subpar products with questionable raw materials and then marking it way the frick up and selling it as a miracle cure to vulnerable and ill-educated consumers. Usually have a high-power legal team on deck, but pay their workers crap and no benefits. Eyewear. Luxottica owns a large majority of eyewear and holds a virtual monopoly on the market. They control all prices and will crush competition. The only reason eyeglasses and sunglasses are so expensive is because of price gouging. Medical research. The only way people can keep their jobs at a lot of the institutions with better facilities is to create a steady stream of high-impact publications. Now, research doesn't work that way. You get the supported results whenever it happens, but that's not how hiring, promotion, or tenure committees see it. This means that, in order to ensure you get enough of these desirable publications in the right period, you have to do all sorts of corner cutting. You publish before the results are well supported. You publish results that are unrepeatable. You write papers in the smallest possible units of the work so people need to wait years to see what the full results are. In the process, junior scientists' careers can be made or absolutely destroyed in this system. A lucky student who gets the right project can find themselves as first author on a very high impact paper and be set for years. But an experienced and previously successful postdoc can be ruined when they can't produce the results the senior scientists want, or just not in the right time frame. The senior scientists rarely have the time to do, or carefully look over, the actual research because they are so busy actually writing the papers and the grants needed to fund the work in the first place. If reviewers catch these issues with the papers, the authors just shop the paper to other journals until it passes, and or they put up such a pitched battle with the editors they just let it pass. Sometimes the eds feel they can't handle the pressure, sometimes are just convinced by the bombast. All of us have seen published papers that we rejected for other journals earlier because the work is poorly done or is just incorrect. To be clear, the authors really believe in their papers even when they are aware of their shortcomings, and they usually have plenty of evidence that papers just as problematic or worse have been published. So why not theirs? On top of everything, the universities and research institutions work over these findings with their press department, and by the time it makes it to journalists, the story is so distorted that it's barely related to the actual work. Bloggers digest this even further and the misperceptions have spread all over a much wider community. Even other scientists in different areas of the same field will absorb this news as truth. These are the scientists on those committees mentioned above, demanding a particular kind of result. As a result of all this, medical research is much more inefficient and expensive than it needs to be. However, scientists need to jobs, grant money, and good facilities to do their work at all, and the system makes it clear what they need to do to ensure those necessities, so they oblige. Scholarly journals. The actual research is usually paid for by the government. When it isn't paid for by the government, it's paid for by a foundation, or in pharmaceuticals by a corporation that is developing a drug. The people who vet the research are all paid by their respective universities. All the journal does is distribute it, yet they charge way more per page than anyone else who just distributes other people's writing. As a chef owner, I would say delivery services like Grubhub. They take 30% of the sale, leaving the restaurant with basically $0 in profit. And their customer support is a joke. It's like they hate us. Frick them. Never again. Not an industry, but higher academia is badly broken. Some of the smartest people are some of the most badly exploited. Old tenured professors limit the number of faculty many departments can have, forcing people to work as postdocs forever, effectively doing all the work the prof should be doing in the first place. Meager pay and long hours, plus constant pressure makes postdocs some of the most depressed people. The grad students are no better either. A lot of the times grad students don't complain about ill treatment, harassment and outright bullying as they don't want to jeopardize their prospects of graduating. If you're a foreigner, this situation becomes even worse, whether you're a grad student or a postdoctoral researcher. My university recently had massive protests and strikes over grad student wages and treatment. It was looking like they were gaining traction for a bit until coronavirus hit. The university responded by basically mass firing the TAs. It was really disgusting. I used to work as a mechanic and I dang well know some things they overcharge the customer for way too much. One time a girl came into my shop, maybe late 20s, you could tell she had no idea about cars. Well, there was some snow the last few weeks and she brought her car in because her roof caved in on top where the snow sat, so now there's a bowl-like spot on her car roof. So she asked us if we could somehow fix it, so my manager came up, told her he'll take a look, so she goes and sits in the lobby area. My manager opens the car door and looks at the roof for 3 seconds before slamming his fist up into the roof of the car, pushing the collapsed roof back to normal. He kept the car in the shop for an hour and spent maybe 10 minutes rubbing the dents out. He charged her $700 for a good punch. Glad I'm not in that industry anymore. The plastic industry. They focus on telling the individual to recycle as a way to fix the global trash crisis. The real focus should be on companies that mass produce plastic and label it as recyclable, but recycling companies cannot actually recycle the materials. It costs too much to recycle certain materials and no one is willing to buy them. Sex toys. It's horribly unregulated and there are tons of manufacturers that use unsafe materials to make their toys. Our sex toys has lots of great info for people looking to get any. Shipping industry, with major corporations such as Walmart being one of the biggest contributors to selling stolen goods. Sometimes trucks go missing or sometimes trucks leave earlier than the established time of departure and never arrive to their destinations. Let's say you have a Walmart appointment for 9 AM. For a 2,000 carton order, it would take at least 2 hours to load all that, but once the loading is done, the truck driver needs to wait until confirmation is given in written form. Well, Walmart truck drivers vanish halfway through the loading and never return. Now, Walmart has about 1,000 boxes not accounted for, plus no confirmation whatsoever that these 1,000 boxes were part of that 2,000 carton order, so they treat them like a bonus. So far, only UPS, FedEx and Fredmeyer are the only companies that keep a close count and send back anything that wasn't in their original order. Heck, Fredmeyer sends the entire order back just for a single mislabeled box. LOL. These three guys are the good guys, from what little I've seen, but Walmart, Jesus. Sometimes, boxes get labeled as being something entirely different in order to bypass special qualifications or restrictions. For example, about the time when Corona-chan started going crazy, we had to label toys and board games as groceries for a huge Walmart order that took about a week and a half to properly label and ship. It was a nightmare and pretty much every employee aside from the administrative staff was disgusted and peed. The non-profit world. Unfortunately, most people at the top are in it to make a name for themselves and don't usually care about the mission of the organization. Mental health facilities. A lot of people trust today's mental health facilities, but from my experience they're quite flawed. Staff can be judgmental and condescending and downright cruel. A family member of mine was institutionalized for a while. I say with full certainty she was healthier before she went in than coming out. The places I've seen are most definitely for profit. They had no intentions of having her fixed and released. Also, sloppy. She was given the wrong people's meds several times. She was also prescribed dangerous combinations that wound up having her sent to the air. Really stupid mistakes were made over and over. The tire business. Tires are a scam and shouldn't cost anywhere near what they do. Everyone along the supply chain is making bank. It's one of the industries I would love to see disrupted. Seriously, Gentlemen's clubs aka strip clubs. I worked as a bouncer DJ for many years in a couple clubs and there is a lot going on in the background that is shady as heck. Not only from the dancers but also bartenders, bouncers, management, owners, etc. What kind of things? Health insurance. In the commercials it is all about caring for your health and stuff. But if you ever get a serious illness, they will do anything to avoid paying for your treatment. Source: my mother got breast cancer and her health insurance made a business decision to let her die rather than pay the $40,000 for her treatment. They made that decision then hired lawyers to make it happen. My mom got to fight them in court while going through chemo. She made it by mortgaging the house. She told me the insurance company caused her more stress than the prospect of dying. Defense contract manufacturing. When I worked in that field it was like a time capsule to 70s stereotypes. Beer for lunch, whiskey in the desk drawer, everyone freaking everyone, and the best seats at the biggest games for decision makers. The wedding industry, at least in the US. The whole point of the wedding industry is to trick people into overspending by preying on their desire to have the perfect wedding. So you have to have multiple photo shoots, a beautiful venue, excellent catering, an expensive dress suit, etc. all at an exorbitant price. It's a scam. A lot of traditional wedding staples, like the white dress, service performed by minister, etc. are based on actual traditions and beliefs. But those traditions don't mean anything anymore and now are sold as traditional to squeeze more money out of you. Tell me, why would you ever need 1,000 photographs each of your engagement, your first look, the ceremony, the bridal party, etc.? How many of the 50 good ones are you going to actually look at and will mean anything? Maybe a handful. The rest just get dumped on social media and forgotten in a few months. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take pictures at your wedding. You should. But there's no reason to spend thousands to take pictures of contrived setups, like the first look. I've been to and been in a number of weddings of my friends and have seen the ludicrously overpriced things the planners convinced them to buy into. And that's just the financial side. That's not even getting into the insanity that is planning the dang thing. Trying to get families on board and compromise their demands is a whole other shady industry. The alcohol industry. In some countries most competing companies use the same distilleries, equipment and ingredients. This includes the higher end premium spirits. All the marketing is basically look how young you are and how much fun you'll have and completely ignores the demographics who buy it or does anything to stop them. I'm fairly certain at least one of the major companies is cooking their books at this point. Nestlé. They use child labor, steal the freshwater reserves from small villages in South Africa promising to give them better access to it, then privatize it and attempt to sell it back to them as bottled water at a price they can't afford. Not to mention I believe they used some water sources rural villages needed for drinking water and used it to pump their wastewater into, then hide behind their lawyers to let them get away with it. Meat industry. The factories are straight up disgusting, not hygienic, and they break so many regulations it's ridiculous. But OFC, when an inspection comes everything is in order. The gourmet mushroom industry. The short of it is that I pulled over to check on what I thought was a forest fire in the middle of nowhere, British Columbia. Turned out it was a wandering rove of, for lack of a better title, Canadian mushroom gypsies looking for matasuki, pine, mushrooms and chanterelles. Next thing you know, my car keys vanished and I was put to work for 2 days with payment being a sandwich and a few beers. We wandered the forest, digging up pine buttons and learned way more about mushrooms than I ever imagined. And we were warned heavily to stay close to our own captors, kidnappers, whatever, as the rival group was not above violent tactics if you entered their territory. This was affirmed when I stumbled upon an angry man from the other side pointing a shotgun at me. Whether or not there's truth to it, I don't know, but supposedly the mushroom world was once incredibly lucrative until the Chinese mob infiltrated it and gouged the prices. After 2 days my keys mysteriously reappeared with my car unharmed and nothing missing. No one would answer where it went, but they all knew. Hands down the nicest kidnappers ever, but it was a wild experience. Vape juice. did some work for a company that used to wholesale to a whole lot of smaller vape shops. The places that sold to us ranged from vape juice laboratories to guys making it in bathtubs. I actually quit vaping seeing some of the conditions the juice is made in. Bonus: one of the guys making it in his bathtub had to excuse himself because he needed to move his stuff as his mum wanted to use the bath. People are messed up. Fishing industry. As a new manufacturer up against brands well known for manufacturing in China for generations, I found that from the highest up to the lowest down, they present an offer to make more money together, and time after time after time, it doesn't pan out as presented. I stopped my business. In about a year, I might give it another shot, but times will be much different. However, those businesses have generations of success killing the competition. I'm pretty sure I'm no match for them due to— sorry, I have actual values. I'll get financially killed again. But hey, if you like to fish, I make a really good fishing line cutter. We can do commerce in a better way. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.